Okay, picture a convention hall. The fluorescent lights are humming with this quiet, kind of sterile intensity. Sitting before the stage are about 200 executives, security officers, and grad students, their faces all lit up by the pale blue glow of their phones and laptops. And stepping onto that stage is a woman named Maya Lin. Now, she doesn't have a laptop. No clicker, no props at all. Just a tailored charcoal blazer, a microphone, and this incredibly quiet, immovable presence. Welcome to this explainer, where we're going to explore the night Maya Lin literally lost her humanity, and the 47 minutes it took to get it back.
So, Maya looks out into this sea of attendees and drops an absolute chill on the room. She tells them most people believe cybersecurity is a war fought with code. You know, we all think it's firewalls and encryption, right? But then she drops the real truth. The most dangerous hacks out there don't touch a single line of software. They exploit human trust. She basically tells the audience, look, I didn't breach systems by forcing my way in. I just walked right through the front door because someone handed me the keys. So let's dive into exactly how a psychology dropout ended up becoming the ultimate virus.
All right, part one, the architecture of deception. To really understand the woman on that stage, we've got to rewind a bit. At its core, social engineering is just the art of psychological manipulation to gain unauthorized access to data and systems. Now, Maya wasn't born a criminal mastermind. She was actually a psychology student, and she deeply understood the unspoken rhythm of human conversation. Things like our natural deference to authority, our desperate urge to avoid conflict, or that deep fear we all have of messing up at our jobs. Operating under the alias Aura, Maya would sit in her high-rise Chicago apartment, totally in the dark, lit only by 4 anti-glare monitors. Picture her behind dual softphones and multi-layered VPNs, her fingers just flying across a mechanical keyboard, completely and utterly insulated from the physical reality of the people she was manipulating.
It's really absolutely wild how she weaponized this psychology. Let's trace the literal steps she took at 2:14 a.m. on November 14th against her target, St. Jude Regional Healthcare. First up, she spoofs her caller ID so it looks like it's coming from their own internal IT department. Second, she runs voice modulation software to inject ambient office noise into the call. You know, the hum of fluorescent lights, paper shuffling, keyboard clicks. Third, she establishes false authority. When David, this completely exhausted overnight IT supervisor, picks up the phone, she confidently introduces herself as Sarah Vance, a senior director. And finally, step 4, she induces urgent compliance by warning him about a critical secondary domain exploit.
And why is she doing all this in the middle of the night? Well, for this staggering number right here, $4.2 million. The broker who hired her wanted a staged ransomware payload deployed that would lock the hospital's databases and forced a massive wire transfer from their emergency reserve fund. Sitting up there in her dark apartment, Maya didn't see a hospital at all. She just saw a vulnerable, sleepy graveyard shift.
So she sets the trap. She feeds David this elaborate lie about an emergency Kerberos token override, basically telling him that if he doesn't act right now, compliance protocols will literally force the entire regional network offline. Notice the contrast here. It's crucial. Maya is sitting comfortably in her high-rise, her voice smooth, disarming, playing the perfect ally. But David, he's sitting all alone in this freezing, dim server room, clutching a cold cup of coffee and shifting nervously in his chair. He is absolutely terrified of making a career-ending mistake. So when she asks him to just read off a 6-digit override token to quote-unquote save him the paperwork, he complies. He reads the numbers, 849012. And boom, Maya is in.
Moving on to part 2, the breaking point. This is the exact moment Maya's sterile, digital illusion violently crashes into reality. Within seconds of getting that access, Maya's automated scripts start aggressively sweeping for domain privileges. But then, out of nowhere, this high-pitched chiming alarm just bursts through her headset. It's coming from David's side. Her script had inadvertently shut down a shared legacy database service, and David starts screaming into his mic, pure panic etched on his face. The telemetry bridge to Ward 4 just went dark, pediatric intensive care. Just down the hall from him, the nurse's station completely lost live feeds to the cardiac monitors and automated ventilators.
And then comes the emotional gut punch that shatters Maya's entire world. David is sobbing into the phone, yelling, "My baby is in that room." His own 7-year-old daughter, Clara, is connected to that exact monitoring bridge. Instantly, that dark, safe, insulated apartment just vanishes for Maya. The glowing monitors blur out. For years, she had protected herself with clinical words like nodes and targets, but right now, she is listening to a father suffocating on his own terror. Maya physically freezes up. Nausea just surges through her chest, and her hands, the same hands that flawlessly typed malicious scripts for years, are shaking so violently she can barely even hold on to her mouse.
It hits her. She essentially has a gun to the head of a 7-year-old child. The polished Sarah Vance persona drops in a split second. Raw desperation completely takes over. She speaks fiercely into her mic. "David, listen to me. I am not Sarah Vance. I am an intruder. I am hacking your network." She begs the terrified father not to hang up and not to touch his keyboard, promising him she is going to try to reverse it.
Which brings us to part 3, 47 minutes. This is where it becomes an agonizing, real-time race against the clock. Look at this timeline. It is just a frantic scramble. The breach began at 2:14 a.m. By 2:24, Maya completely abandons her ransomware payout and starts manually rewriting corrupted routing tables. And because of the hospital's old proprietary architecture, there is no magic undo button. She literally has to build an emergency patch on the fly, actively fighting her own backdoors to do it. It takes 47 grueling, agonizing minutes of desperate typing until 3:01 a.m. for the telemetry to finally be restored. To actually save the network, Maya asks David for his local IP address. Tears are streaming down her face as her fingers blur across the keyboard, typing this raw command to open a local bypass. By executing this unencrypted link, you have to understand, she is intentionally burning her proxies. She is systematically stripping away her own anonymizers and broadcasting her physical apartment location directly to federal cybercrime task forces. And she just does not care. She only needs the hospital's system to connect. Finally, at exactly 3:01 a.m., David lets out this gasping sob over the line. The flashing orange status light turns green. The deafening alarms stop. Through her headset, Maya hears the distant, steady beep of the telemetry monitors roaring back to life. She collapses back into her ergonomic chair, totally exhausted. She calmly tells David to call the FBI and gives him her exact Chicago address. She doesn't wipe her hard drives. She doesn't try to run. She just walks into her kitchen, pours a glass of water, sits in the dark, and waits for the tactical teams to push her door open.
Part 4. The Furnace of Conscience. Now we look at the severe consequences of her actions.
The reality of her sentencing was incredibly stark. Maya pleaded guilty to all charges. But what's truly incredible here is her absolute refusal to sign a cooperation agreement. She wanted absolutely no deals, no discounts on her guilt. Standing right there in court, she called herself a parasite who hid behind screens, too cowardly to face the damage she caused. Ultimately, she was sentenced to 6 years in federal prison and ordered to pay $180,000 in restitution.
Prison was a grueling confrontation with her past, for sure. Stripped of her screens and all her power, she had to live among women whose lives had been completely derailed by trauma. But a massive transformation happened. She started working in the library. Then, she started teaching illiterate inmates to read, helping them get their GEDs, and running digital literacy workshops. Maya realized that the profound understanding of psychology she used to weaponize and deceive people could actually be used to uplift them. During her last 2 years inside, she painstakingly wrote a 300-page manuscript on defensive cybersecurity awareness, rooted entirely in human empathy.
And that brings us to Part 5, Empathetic Defense. This manuscript became the blueprint for her redemption. The absolute core lesson to take away from this explainer is this revolutionary model she built. Maya submitted her manuscript while working night shifts as a janitor, dealing with endless rejections for being an ex-con, until a nonprofit finally took a chance and read it. If you compare her framework to traditional security, which honestly relies on shaming employees, punishing them with trick phishing tests, and keeping anxiety high, Maya's empathetic model is a game changer. It builds a supportive, low-fear culture where employees feel completely safe reporting mistakes the second they happen. She realized that the old punitive model creates the exact panic and isolation she used to exploit in victims like David.
Finally, epilogue, the echo. Let's head back to the fluorescent hum of that bright auditorium.
Maya wraps up her powerful presentation to those 200 executives, staring directly at them with quiet, earned authority. And she leaves them with this defining quote: "The scammer's greatest weapon isn't your password, it's your isolation." She explains that social engineering only works because humans are neurologically wired to panic when our loved ones are threatened. She dedicated the rest of her life to ensuring that no night shift worker and no terrified father ever feels helpless or betrayed by a human voice again.
As the room erupts into a massive standing ovation and Maya smiles faintly, stepping off that stage and walking into the light, I really want to leave you with this final provocative thought.
Are you building firewalls to protect your systems, or are you building a culture to protect your people? Because as Maya Lin's story proves, without a shadow of a doubt, all the encryption in the world means absolutely nothing if the person behind the keyboard is left standing alone in the dark.